Commands and Colors Napoleonics, the second title in the Commands and Colors series by GMT. This game continues a series that I really enjoyed in its first incarnation with Commands and Colors Ancients, so I knew it would only be a short matter of time before I played the second title. I want to get started as soon as possible to tell about this game because I have a lot of things that I want to say. Just one note is that since unless you lived in a cave in the last couple of years, you probably know the basic ideas behind the Commands and Colors system, so I'm not going to cover the basic mechanics of the game here, but I'm going to concentrate on the specific elements and aspects that Napoleonics adds to the series. The game comes with a lot of wooden blocks representing the three armies involved in the scenarios that are available in this set. You have the French army, the British army, and the Portuguese army. The plastic containers that you see here are not included in the game. As you can see, there are a lot of blocks, pretty nice illustrations, and some preparatory work that you will have to do to attach all the stickers to the block. That's an investment in time that you have to go through a little bit of a rite of passage if you want. These three armies work very differently from one another. They have very different abilities and weaknesses and strengths. There are player aids that come with the game, but I prefer these player aids that I found online. I just found them better at visualizing the relevant abilities and aspects of each army. The Portuguese units are kind of small compared to the units of the other two armies. They're usually formed by 4 or 3 blocks per unit. In this game, units fire a die per block in the unit. It's not a standard number of dice in each attack like in the previous game in the series, and this is a huge difference. I will tell a little bit more about this later, but also there are other factors. For example, if a unit is firing without moving or after moving, then there's a different number of dice that is rolled. The Portuguese units fire a die per block, forming a unit when they're firing without moving, and half of those dice rounded down if they fire and move. And the British and the French have a similar limitation, half of the dice, but they round up. So there's a difference there in some of the units after after halving and rounding also get to add an extra die. And then there are different types of melee attacks. The French army has powerful cavalry, 4 blocks per cavalry unit as opposed to 3 blocks of the British army. And also then they have good firepower when it comes to firing without moving, usually a die per block, and in some cases with an extra die, half dice rounded up when moving. And then some units have very good melee attacks. For example, the Old Guard has a die per block plus 2 dice, and the Old Guard also receives immunity from 2 flags rolled against it. British units, the number of units in the British infantry varies from 4, 5, or 3, whereas for the French player infantry is always 4. And then the British units are very good at firing without moving, so in range combat they usually roll a die per block plus 1, and they are not that bad in melee, but not as good as the French units either. As I said, in this game, you roll a die per block forming each unit when you are attacking. This is of crucial importance. It really changes the way in which you play the game. Suppose that I'm the British player and I want to attack the French with that unit. I can choose to attack that unit or that unit in melee. Now, in Commands and Colors Ancients, in this situation here, it would be a no-brainer to attack that unit because these 2 units attack me with the same strength. If they're still alive after my attack, then I would receive an attack and they would attack with the same strength. In this case, this unit would attack me with much less power than this one, so I have to choose which one I want to attack. In the base game, I will go for this one because I get the point for destroying that unit, and also I reduce the risk that my unit is exposed to, and these 2 units would deal me the same damage potentially, so So why not getting reduction of risk and point at the same time? In this game here, things are different, because if I attack that unit, I destroy it, I get the point, but then I still have a powerful unit that may attack me next and may deal a lot of damage. So I get the point, but I don't diminish the risk significantly. If I attack that unit, then I may reduce it. I may reduce the risk of being attacked later or to receive damage later, but that unit then may retreat or run away before I get to attack it again. So I may reduce the risk of a future attack, but I may lose a point. Here you have this dilemma, this choice between going for reduction of risk or going for quick points. Very interesting, very significant change from the previous system. The dice are similar to the dice that you find in the Ancients game. There are each die has two symbols representing infantry, a symbol representing cavalry, and a symbol for artillery. These symbols inflict a hit for each symbol that is rolled on a die that is rolled during an attack, and so that means that hitting infantry units is much easier than to hit artillery or cavalry. Very interesting, because infantry units are larger but more exposed to danger. Sabers inflict a hit on the opponent in melee for most units, but there are some units that do not count sabers symbols as hits, and flags, just like in the previous game in the series, may force the opponent to retreat unless they are ignored because of abilities of the unit that the flag is rolled against, support from friendly units, and leader effects. Napoleonics, other Napoleonics things, well, a tactical option here is combined arms. An infantry or cavalry unit that is attacking in melee may receive support from an activated friendly artillery unit. And the advantage is that the two units that are attacking, the melee unit and the other unit, will roll their dice together before the target unit gets to fight back, to battle back. And of course, that means that the initial attack can be particularly devastating. Another important thing is the option of placing your infantry unit in square to defend against cavalry attacks. When you decide to place an infantry unit in square, you place a square marker on it. Each square marker has a number that corresponds to one of the slots on this board. Each player has a board such as this one. For each unit that you place in square, the opponent draws a card from your hand randomly, and your card is placed on the board. The card is committed. For as long as that unit is in square, you cannot use the card that you have here. So the more units you have in square, the smaller your hand is. Very interesting reduction of your options. You place a unit in square when you're being attacked by an opponent, by an enemy cavalry unit. The effect is that you get to roll against the attacking cavalry unit before the attack of the cavalry unit is resolved. This is a reversal of the usual battle order of actions. But there is a catch here. The unit in square only rolls one die against the opponent, and there is no game effect, no other factor in the game that will increase that number. It has to be one die. It cannot be more than that. And the advantage is that you roll it first, so if you roll a flag and you force the enemy cavalry to retreat, then the cavalry unit never gets to attack you. Even if the cavalry unit is still there after you rolled your die, then the cavalry unit will be able to attack you only with one die. So squares are really powerful, are really effective ways to keep cavalry at bay. On the other hand, there is another problem here. Once you're in square, you cannot come out of square if there are enemy cavalry units adjacent to your square. So the cavalry of the opponent may just stay there to harass your squares. And that exposes the square to danger because the square does not help against artillery or infantry. So if your unit is stuck there in square, and when you're in square you cannot move, then enemy infantry or artillery may attack you, and they get to roll a normal amount of dice against you, but you still roll only one die to defend against enemy infantry or artillery. So that can be tricky. Also, since the squares do not move, they cannot retreat, and therefore they convert retreat results into hits that they have to suffer as block reductions. Last but not least, you have a nice, beautiful, colorful scenario book with 15 battles And as you can see from the maps and the setup instructions of these battles use a lot of terrain features. My impression is that there are more terrain tiles used in an average battle than in Commands and Colors Ancients, and of course these tiles will add to the experience, to the historical quality of the battles, and to the challenges that you will have to face as you are trying to make your units work, and as you're trying to create a good interaction between the abilities of your units and the features on the board. I love it. I love this game. I love the first game in the series, but to me, this one is even more interesting, more intriguing, more exciting. It has all the things that I liked in the first title of the series, but then it adds more tactical options. It adds the square. The squares are really great because, of course, they are tough decisions. They imply tough decisions, and they trigger a potential chain of events with the enemy cavalry trying to block to block your square, so to prevent your units from coming out of square. Then the enemy infantry supporting the enemy cavalry, your own infantry supporting your square. So units that are sort of like caught like in a vortex that are trying to disentangle this situation. The combined arms option is really great, and of course it will force you to plan ahead so that you can launch that powerful attack, and the opponent may keep a card up his sleeve, quite literally, to foreseeing that may happen, and try to prevent you from putting together that attack. A lot of interesting things, but to me the greatest new thing is the fact that now the number of dice that you roll is tied to the number of blocks in a unit. It seems such a small thing, such a small tweak, but it has a huge impact on the overall experience of the game. Now the game feels more fluid, the battle is more nuanced, different areas of the board will dramatically become less dangerous for you. The concentration of firepower of the opponent will change throughout the battle, and so will yours. So all these things have to be taken into account, and as I said in the previous segment, this dilemma that you have between going after the dangerous enemy or going after the weak enemy that can give you points immediately, that is something that you have to face, and I just love this. To me, this is a great game. It works in any mode that you play it, against wargamers or non-wargamers, solo or against an opponent. It's a game just like Commands and Colors Ancients. It's easy to teach, quick to set up, quick to play, and still yet a lot of fun. Definitely a game that grabs me and keeps me entertained. And just by talking about this game right now, I just feel like setting up a scenario and playing it right now because the game is that exciting. A lot of scenarios, a lot of different battles that you can play, a lot of replay value. This is definitely a great game. If you played the Commands and Colors system in the past and you enjoyed it, you owe it to yourself to try Commands and Colors Napoleonics. If you have never played the system, then this game would be a wonderful place to start.